I don't think this is working right, boys. I'm not sure. Can anybody on Instagram see me live? Is the question. Am I live on Instagram or not? I don't think I am. It shows me live on StreamYard, though. It says I'm live on my channel on YouTube. Hello, everyone on YouTube. Thank you for joining, one person. But I absolutely cannot figure out how to make it go live on Instagram. Hey, Mike, bear with me for 1 second, man. I'm going to try to make this thing go live. I'm trying to go live on 2 platforms, and it's not working out. I don't know. I'm going to have to try it again. This is the second time I've tried to go live from 2 places, or try to go live on 2 different platforms from StreamYard. And I don't, it says edit, but I can't. I'm just going to remove it. You still there, Mike? I think I'm just on YouTube now. I can't figure out how to do that. It says you have to go back into the Instagram tab and click go live after you copy the link, which I can find the link. I can copy the link, which that's practically a miracle. But then when I go back, I go over here, I put the link in here, and when I go back to the tab, it says go live on Instagram, but the go live tab is like dead. You can't click it. So, all right, Mike, thanks. Mike's here. Hey, we got 3 folks in here right now. Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys. What are we talking about today, boys? I found this book locally. There's like 600 lakes and ponds around me in the forest. One thing I noticed that was cool in here is they have topo maps. And they also have total hardness and alkalinity readings. Oh, here's actually a total phosphorus reading on Lake Mary here. Just very unique and very different types of information in this little book that I got from the Forest Service the other day. Here's total alkalinity, hardness. They have a pH here of 5.9, pretty acidic on Lake Lou. So I found it interesting. They also have lists of common plants found in the lake. But I also found it interesting that you can, as I flip through this book, there'll be some of the, well, let me find one example. Some of these hardness alkaline, like I just read that hardness level was really low, right? Here's a total hardness of 3.5 and an alkalinity of 0.2 in Lake Kerr. Lake Kerr's big. It's right down there behind me in Salt Springs. A total hardness of 3.5 is really, really low. But then go back to find a spring here real quick. and there will be a really drastic change in the hardness and alkalinity reading. Okay, here we go. St. Johns River. See the alkalinity and hardness reading over here? That says 146 total hardness, 82 alkalinity. So how in the world, it's a good example of why we measure. And I'm going to be doing, so we can talk about, that'll be a good one. We'll just tie that into what's going on next. So let's finish that thought. We've got a pond up here in the forest with a hardness level of 3. But the St. Johns River, which is, it's just maybe like 6 or 7 miles over there. It's not far. What's up, Tim? Thanks for joining, everyone. If you got any questions, throw it in there. I'm going to get a little technical tonight about it because I've got to do a video, and I'll explain why. All right, so Lake Kerr, like I said, is just right down the road here, and then St. John, it flows. I think it flows into Salt Springs, which flows into the St. Johns River, but I'm not exactly sure on that. Pretty sure, but not exactly sure. But I'm pretty sure that's how that water flows down there. So how in the world do we have a big lake with a hardness level of 3, but the St. Johns River has a hardness level of 146? And they're 5-6 miles apart, and they're both big bodies of water. You would expect they would kind of both be similar, but they're not. And it has to do around here, that will have a great deal to do with spring water flow. Depending on where you test the water, and by where I mean as these huge springs with millions and millions of gallons of water come out, with water coming out of the ground. Groundwater is harder. Minerals are different in the groundwater than it is in like kind of the standard like runoff or rainwater. And ponds that are filled, I get to go to a pond scale to use this example. What we would do is use a really small pond, probably less than half an acre, that doesn't have the right kind of watershed. I've seen a bunch of these, and they have a hard time keeping it full, so they put a well on it, and they fill it with well water. Okay, it's really important that you understand that as the pond manager, that the pond is being filled with well water, because that completely changes everything about the water chemistry. And these springs would work the same way. You've got some of the lakes don't have a big spring coming into it, right? They're fed through different ways, like the swamp water flow and the groundwater flow, and but they don't have a big, huge spring head that's just dumping millions of gallons in there, like others, like right here, Rodman, Rodman, right here behind the house. Just, I mean, throw a rock almost and hit it. There's a place called the Blue Hole, and it's a huge spring that comes out into the lake. And when the water's calm, you can actually see it, kind of rolling the water because of the way the water comes in out of the ground. So the point is, the lake, the water in Kerr is come through the swamp. It's come through the needles and the, all of the roots, and the cypress needles have affected that water chemistry to make the pH 5.9. That's pretty acidic. You're dealing with that kind of environment. And obviously in that environment, there's not a lot of limestone, because that's what a hardness measurement is the measurement, basically the measurement of lime. And you move though down the street here to where the springs are pouring in from different places and all ending up in the St. Johns River, where all these springs are coming into the river right? So there's not maybe a spring in Kerr, obviously, because we don't see the evidence of that in the water quality test. But we certainly see a jump to 146 parts per billion in St. Johns River. And that's getting up high. That's what I would consider a pretty high hardness count. In Georgia, around where I live, most of my ponds were like 20 to 40 parts per million hardness, to give you an idea, pretty low there. So, but pumping water out of the ground in Georgia and the regular just groundwater flow that you get is two different things. You could get really high hardness and alkalinity from well water, even in Georgia. So it's important to understand that water chemistry, especially like in the situation I'm in, where people are calling me from different places, asking me, "Hey, I got this problem, algae problem, right? Let's just use algae, like filamentous algae, that stringy stuff, that gets on everybody's lures this time of year." Well, it's kind of different. It depends on the hardness and alkalinity of the water as to how much algicide you're going to have to use. The more lime and the more hardness and the more alkalinity, like the higher the number, like in the St. Johns River, 146. If I was getting those kind of measurements and that was my pond water that I needed to treat, I instantly know that I need to go high on the scale. They'll give you a scale, like a range, like 1 to 2 gallons per acre of this product. Don't exceed this much. But don't go as low as this, right? And all products will have that go into the pond. They'll have like a range. Well, when your hardness levels start getting up that high, over 100 and higher, and hardness can go way higher than that. It'll be like 300 or 400 out west, where there's a lot of limestone. But when your hardness levels get that high for treatment purposes, I automatically know in my head, just from, I guess, like a business person's perspective, I'm going to need the higher end of the amount of chemicals. Like if it says 1 to 2 gallons per acre, and it's 140 parts per million hardness, I'm going to need 2 gallons per acre. But in Georgia, where it's 20 parts per million, I can actually get away with less than 1 gallon per acre, probably. And I do. I mean, that's what they recommend. When the hardness and alkalinity when the hardness and alkalinity levels get low, that reduces the binding ability of the water and allows those chemicals to be in the water and available to the plants more. And so you can get away with way less product at Sugar Hill, where we've got around 20 parts per million, pretty low, 18, whatever. And now we come to Lake Kerr, it's even lower, right? Which I really didn't anticipate that, but I mean, it's in the book. Somebody tested it. And then you go down the street to the river and, you're in 147 parts per million. And it's just a great example of why having, a test kit is important, and testing your water, knowing exactly where you're at. And that leads me to the next part of what's going on with me, which I think is pretty cool. And let me make sure I don't have any, what's up, Frank? I don't have any questions. Nope, I don't see any questions. All right, boys. So the next thing that's going on is, it took me a while messing around with Amazon. And I know everybody knows about like the affiliate program. You can become an Amazon affiliate. You can copy the lures onto your video on YouTube and stuff. You can get affiliate marketing done that way. But Amazon is apparently doing something a little bit different. And there's something called an influencer program. And I was signing up for the affiliate marketing because that's what everybody tells you to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like you need to go do this. You need to go do this. So I finally went and did that. But while I was at the affiliate marketing website and everything, it referenced me to, are you an influencer? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess that depends. How do you guys define influencer? You know, so you have to submit your um, social media influence, like your platforms, to them. And I tried once and I couldn't get in, but I couldn't. I think it was like a technical glitch. I don't think they could get in and see like Instagram. I was having a problem with it linking to Instagram. And at the time, I only had like 900 or 1,000 followers on YouTube. But when I tried again a couple weeks ago, I had a couple of reels, a couple of shorts actually, shorts on YouTube, hit big and get me a bunch of followers. So I got a 7,500 or so right now on YouTube that just poured in there over the last 3 months. And so I reapplied to that influencer deal and got immediately accepted. That thing's pretty interesting because, and I think what I'm going to do, and all right, so what I've got over there, it looks like Amazon to me is making a move to try to be like shopping and social media at the same time. So I'm not sure if they'll achieve that goal or not, but that looks like what they're trying to do over there, where they've got, because again, I have a page over there now. It has aquatic biologists, it'll have photos and videos, but it's a little bit different in that you have your videos approved over there. Like I'll submit videos, and I think after I get approved, after I do some videos, I don't think I have to get like every video approved, but as of right now, I've got to do 3 videos and I get them approved. And the interesting part about that is there'll be videos with product links in the video. So my page at Amazon has a store with all kinds of pond products, and I can make videos about how to use those pond products. All right. So that brings me to my next point. How do I use that intelligently? You know, how-to videos of pond products. Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is like, where are the biggest disconnects? And I guess it probably just jumps out at me because it's a pet peeve. So let me explain my position, and then maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from. Must be boring tonight, only 2 folks. Thanks for hanging with me, fellas. But I'm going to say this stuff because there's a couple of professionals following along. I think this can help. Well, I kind of lost my train of thought on where I wanted to go because I'm looking at my notes. I had some other notes. Oops. I'm sure that sounded really good. One cool thing that happened is I talked to Captain Mac. Went live on WSB with him this morning. He actually called me and asked me, and I think we're going to do some fishing and do some talking on his program about this stuff. I'm experiencing technical difficulties, boys. Sorry about this. Something's not right. There it is. I've got a bad plug on these old earphones. I've got to upgrade this deal. Okay. So what was I talking about? I was talking about treatments and Amazon and the treatment videos. So how do I be smart about that? Well, the first place that I see that I can be intelligent about that is when I am, as a professional pond applicator, part of my job for years, and the part that made me the most money was doing weed treatments. That would motivate people the quickest. The pond would look ugly very quickly. Weeds grow over ponds very quickly. And people generally have a reactive nature to that. If they'll let it go until it absolutely looks terrible and they get a bunch of complaints, then you got to go deal with it. So as a professional applicator of, say, algicides, that's going to be real common over the next couple months. Springtime, filamentous algae problems pop up naturally. The problem is, like, from the state of Georgia, I'm sure the state of Florida, I don't have my license in Florida. I'm not doing any treatments anymore. I don't want to fool around with any of that stuff anymore. I'll consult with people on how to do those treatments because I've used the products plenty of times, but I'm not actually gonna physically do that. This is DIY stuff is what I'm doing. So that being said, the biggest disconnect is, like, for years, the EPA, Georgia EPD would come to my house and inspect where you kept your chemicals, which I really didn't keep any chemicals at the house. This was kind of set up for companies bigger than mine, but there's really, again, it's kind of where there's a disconnect in bureaucracy. In aquatics, there's really not that very many big companies that would even kind of fall into what they were inspecting. But that being said, they'd look at my shed and they'd make sure I'd had my very little that I had stored there, stored properly, and they checked my notes and they made sure that I applied all my chemicals. It's like just a test from the state once a year, maybe once every other year. They would come through and just kind of make sure you're not messing anything up with chemicals. And I'm not complaining about that or anything, right? That's fine. I mean, the rules are the rules and I'll play by the rules. I'm fine with the rules. But the problem is I'm a professional applicator, and over applying chemicals is foolish on my part, just from it being a business perspective. Like, I am not going to go blow the water up with a bunch of product because it costs money. Where, to me, I never saw a professional do that. Again, they're not going to waste their money if they don't have to. Where I saw the treatment disconnection was because all the pond chemicals, all the algicides, all the stuff are available to purchase at the public. You don't need a special license. So anybody in public who owns a pond can just go down to lots of places, Tractor Supply, your local farm supply stores. Pond algicides are everywhere. And you can buy them and just dump them off in your pond. You can go get copper sulfate, dump it off in your pond. So to me, the biggest disconnect for pond treatments on algicide and chemical treatments is right there. That's the most dangerous thing that we have going. And the problem I have with that is because the guy who doesn't know what he's doing, dumping chemicals in the water, can definitely dump too much. That's when that happens, because more is better, right? Trust me, chemicals in the water, it's not like money. More is not better. And that's where I've seen the fish kills. It's where the guy who doesn't know what he's doing over applies a product, not a professional. So I think the system they have set up would work okay if nobody else, if only the professional guys who knew how to use that stuff could buy that stuff. Then the system that they had set up will work, because it's being managed very closely at that point. But to me, there's just a huge disconnect there from the government to how to actually protecting our water. Because, like I said, you can just go buy, if it says 1 to 2 gallons per acre of algicide and you want to dump 25 gallons per acre, well, it's America. You can go buy as much as you want, pour it in. I've literally seen that happen, guys just going wild, and also using old products and products like Carmax and products that are really bad for the environment, and really misusing products, like using products that won't even, like old wives' tales. I'm gonna put this on it, and it doesn't even work on it. Like, it's just like mathematically impossible. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of misinformation and pond treatments and stuff. And again, I've just been around it for 30 years. So that being said, my idea with the Amazon videos is to literally go do that. Just take the algicide and use it, and you could sell the sprayer you're using, and you can sell the algicide. You can get it ordered over Amazon, and then at least you would then to have a couple minute, just nothing long, 2, 3, 4 minutes maybe. I don't think it's going to be very long, but a how to, and to tie the video that we're on right now back together at the beginning when we were talking about hardness and alkalinity. You could also pick up those little kits to test your water, to check to see kind of where you're at. If you're out there watching, there's only 3 of us on here right now, but a lot of folks watch this across the week. They come and watch, later. If you have a pond and you want to get your water checked, I personally would just get the local extension office to do it. Just go to your local extension service in your county, just find where their office is and tell them you want to do a pond check, and they'll give you a bottle, and you'll grab some water, put it in a little cooler and give it to them, and they'll send it to the local university, and the kids over there will test the water and give you a report back in a few weeks. I haven't done it in Georgia in a while, but the last time I did it, I think it was like $20 or $25. It wasn't expensive, and you get the most comprehensive water tests and kind of everything you need to know, for $20 or $25 and a little bit of drive time. I would do it that way if I owned a pond. You can buy test kits. I mean, I'm gonna definitely tag the test kits for people to buy, and then just do little videos on not only how to use it. It's a titration thing where you drop drops in there and it'll shake it, change colors. Pretty easy, but it's great if you understand how to make the watercolor turn from pink to red, and see that it says, okay, our hardness is 25 parts per million. But what does that mean? And how are we going to use that in the field? And that's where I come in. That's where I'm real good at cutting around the nonsense, because just like I just described to you right there, you'll run into pros. I've run into pros that don't understand what I just described to y'all about hardness in the water, and how and how the changes of the hardness changes because they've never sprayed water across states. Most guys, they have a job, but their job is pretty local to their area. Where I wasn't. I was a subcontract for a lot of different places. I went across a lot of different places. And that's when I started noticing the differences, because I'd go to a lake and be on a job site, and it'd be, maybe in northern North Carolina, and there's 200 parts per million total alkalinity and hardness around in there, and pretty high. And the boys just be putting the algicide out, just laying it out. And I was like, whoa, man, I don't put it out like that back home. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And then we come back a week, 10 days later to check on the treatment, and the treatment didn't even work that good. You could tell that we were there, but you could tell we needed to go again. And it just blew me away. And I was like, my God, that algicide that if I did that at Georgia, not only would I have certainly killed every bit of algae, I probably would have killed some fish too, because algicides are copper based. They're toxic to fish at like 0.3 parts per million. So it doesn't take a lot of copper. It doesn't take a lot of algicide to kill fish. And then the type of algicide you use, like if you use bluestone copper sulfate, I don't recommend anybody uses that for algae control, because it's 99% copper. It's like really hot dose. And the problem with it is it goes in, it's hot as hell. I mean, it'll kill whatever it touches, but it's bound up pretty quick. And within 24 hours, that copper's just in the bottom, in the dirt, and bound. Whereas if you use a liquid copper, it's only like 7% copper, but it's chelated. So that means coated. And that coating keeps that copper from doing what I just described the copper sulfate doing and getting bound up. So you'll use a much lighter dose of copper with chelated liquid, and it'll be released out over time. So it's not nearly as toxic to the fish over the treatment period either. Okay. That hit all my notes about what I wanted to cover. 4 of us, and I'm going to choke to death. And I only get choked in coughing fits when I've been talking on the mic for a while. What's up with that? There's probably like an exercise or something I can do to help. Anyway, I don't know how many gallons of algicide I'll sell at Amazon or whatever. I don't know if that'll work, but there will be. It'll be cool though because I've already got it kind of set up with in the store in there, a bunch of products, and I just ordered a few of them, and that's one thing it makes me skeptical about Amazon is before I sell it, I want to make sure that it actually gets delivered. When they say it will be delivered and it is what it is. And because I just don't want to have those kind of issues in my life where people are ordering stuff that I recommend and they're not showing up. Customer crap. But I'm not boring you to death, Frank. I'm glad, brother. Thank you. But I think we're a lot alike. I think, if we were in the boat together, it probably wouldn't be a quiet day. Some days are quiet days. You ever have those uncomfortably quiet days with those weird dudes on the boat? There's a good conversation for a podcast right there. What's the weirdest conversation you've had with a dude on a boat? Or the weirdest thing that happened? I'll tell you, I've had what's happened to me a few times. It's a weird situation. People will invite you to go fishing. And it's for many different reasons, but one of the reasons that they're usually fishing with me, I've seen it, I've noticed it, is it's a contest. They're going to outfish me. They're definitely keeping score. So that's okay. I mean, and if people outfish me, that's fine too. I'm not really competitive about my fishing that way. I've been so long in a business where my livelihood did not depend on how well I could catch fish. If you hired me to manage your pond or lake, I needed you to catch the fish to justify the check that you were cutting to me. So the most important person to me to catch the fish was, and I think that's what helped me, online, social media wise too, is that ideology there is a little different. Mike says he talks to himself on the boat. I saw on YouTube yesterday that if you talk to yourself, it means you're a genius. So I must be like multiple levels of it because I taught to myself. But that's pretty good. We always got Frank. He can't. That's why he's being quiet. We got to get Frank his comment up there for the night because he's driving. Frank's usually our comedic relief in the well, but all 3 of us here probably already know that. But like I said, there'll be about 100 people that'll come through across this week, and I'm lining up some cool people to talk to, y'all. I think I'm going to call it "This is not a podcast" because this really is not a podcast. But after interviewing Mike, I thought that went really well, and I've had a lot of good response about that. And I think it's interesting that when you were trying to get people lined up to interview on here, the life happens. People agree they'll come on and then they can't make it or whatever. And that's happened to me a few times, but that's okay. It's just kind of a side project right now for YouTube, but with the list of folks that I've got lined up that have agreed to come on that have, over the next couple months or, maybe a year or so will come on and we'll get to chat with. Oh man, this is not a podcast. It's going to be a pretty good podcast. Yeah. There you go, Philip. Philip says to talk to yourself. You have to talk to somebody smart. You got to talk to yourself. That's the truth. Hey, that was a nice fish you had the other day, Philip, man. That 91 percenter. You're in the right water, my friend. For anybody who watches later and doesn't know Philip, he's really good at using relative weight in public water and interpreting the data to give him an idea of what the fish population looks like and where he wants to go fishing to plan his fishing days and his little excursions. And his Philip's page is real good about fishing deals too. He's always got some good deals on lures and stuff. Yeah, whatever, Philip. He's trying to play modest over there. Philip's always around the fish, man. That's the truth. And like I said, he engages in a different way too. He's more like me. He's looking at it more through math and science eyes. He's been following a long time now. How many years has it been now, Philip? Jeez, that's probably 4 years, I guess, 4 or 5. I don't know how long this has been going on. We just keep living, don't we? You also caught a 91 percenter there too. There's a good topic I could take that topic and run all day with it. All right, so what Cheek's talking about is catching bass that are at 91% relative weight, which if it's a 12 and a half inch bass, it weighs 0.91 pounds because a 12 and a half inch bass on my standard weight scale is 1 pound. So if it weighed 0.91 and it should weigh 1 pound, it would be 0.91 when I divide those two, or 91%. That's how we get a percentage out of that number. That's what that number means. So that 91% is much like a score on a report card, except that 91% is a B plus on the way we score with our report card. It doesn't break down quite like a report card. Under 93%, I don't like in my ponds. That's kind of an indicator of it's going in the wrong direction for my bass growth. Right now at Sugar Hill Outdoors, of all the bass that I've managed, just for a frame of reference now, because we know we don't have competing fish, we've got bass in the right balance. We've had one bass at 99% and all the other bass over 100%, and some of the bass over 140%. Now that's getting a little ridiculous, but that has to do with new ponds and genetics and a lot of different things with when you get them that high. But the point of this is when you start not only catching the fish and saying, hey, I caught a 3-pounder. Okay, that's great, but that really doesn't give you any information. And this is what I'm talking about with Philip's learn and what I learned, and then what Philip does and it does so good explaining too, is when you calculate out that percentage and you say 91%, and when you go to a lake that doesn't produce fish very well, they'll be like 77%, 82%, 80% down there, right? Like I said, we can go to Sugar Hill Outdoors right now and we're going to be catching fish, but when we put that percentage on it, you're going to be looking at 109%, 112%, 115%. Okay. And the point that I'm making is write it down for the ponds that you fish or the lakes that you fish. You take that relative weight information and you just write it down. And over time, as you catch one fish, two fish, you'll start to notice a pattern. And not only will you start noticing a pattern in that, hey, this lake tends to always produce fish that's over 90% or heavier, but then you can also use that information in a different way and further break down that, hey, this lake is producing pretty good fish that are big, but the little fish are skinny. and you'll start to be able to see it. Like I said, just like a report card. And for me, this is why I preach it. For me, it never really made any sense to me until I wrote it down, until I measured it and literally just wrote it down on a dumb piece of paper and had it listed it out of all the fish's weights and all the relative weights out there to the side. And when you list it out like that, it just jumps out at you like, oh, wow, look, all the 12 to 14 inch bass are skinny. They're all 78, 80, 82. The 20 inch bass are 114. There's massive discrepancies sometimes like that you really, without using the measurements, without measuring, you can't see it. And it's just nonsense, this whole idea of, I hold up the fish and I tell how much it weighs. No, use the scale. And if you don't trust your scale, get 2 scales and make sure you know how to calibrate them. This isn't a guessing game. I need to know within a couple of ounces to do my job properly. Yep. So to extrapolate on his last idea there before I take it down, he also caught a 91% fish there. Okay. So that fish could have been 12 inches and 91%. It could have been 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pounder, whatever. But it's a 91% fish, which is for public water pretty good. We're going to take that. If that's a private water fish, if that's a fish that I'm managing, I'm feeling starting to question what I'm doing or what's going on. I'm going to be, that's a warning sign. But again, my fish are over 100% right now. So that's what I'm going to be watching for. Are my fish starting to slip under 100% relative weight? There'll be my clue, on the pond that I'm managing right now in real time, because we've only seen one bass at 99%. So that's where I'll turn my harvest. If I start seeing maybe there's a group of fish, I see 4 or 5. Now this is a 2.5 acre pond I'm talking about. So if I see 4, 5, 10, maybe even 12 to 15 bass this season that are underweight in that pond, I'll harvest them, because I know I've also got, Clint just sent me another picture today. He caught another 4 pounder. I've had fish grow 2 pounds a season in there, and I've had some fish that didn't. So if they're not wanting to grow, it's time for them to go. And then that frees up space for the bass that are going to be born this spring to have a space to grow up into. Does that make sense? You kind of have to make space for them. If you don't make that space for them and manage that way, you could have too many bass, and that'll slow down the growth of all of them. And that was where you see it is in that number, in that 91%. But Philip just, again, he's saying in his neck of the woods in the small waters, when he starts seeing consistent relative weights above 85%, he knows he's fishing pretty good water, pretty balanced water, a place that's going to produce pretty nice fish. And he's exactly right. And I know he's right because I backed it up. What he's doing, he's recording data the way that I recorded data with an electrofishing boat. And that's exactly what I saw. Exactly. So again, when somebody else measures like me, if that makes sense, we have to measure along the same scales, right? But once you understand how to measure them and you measure comparatively, now we can certainly, we're having a very in-depth conversation about patterns in fisheries, and Phillips in South Carolina, I'm in Central Florida, but still honestly, I've never even heard anybody talk about stuff like this before, but that's what keeps me coming back, guys like Philip that are picking this stuff up and using it. I've got young professionals picking this stuff up and using it. And I really like working with the young professionals, man, because maybe they don't have the experience that I have. Well, in some things, it'd be hard to have the amount of experience that I've had. Being a kid, you can't have the experience that I've had. That's not possible. But what I'm saying is too, is what, even being a kid, maybe the people that taught them their classes didn't have the experience that the people who taught me my classes did. And so I can blend that information that they gave me, and I can blend my field experience, just boots on the ground, walking around, getting paid to do it, and help them so they don't have to make any mistakes and they can get better at their jobs and be, um, and it not take them as long in their career to be where I am. And then that just benefits our fisheries for the next generation. That's the way I see that. Three folks. Everybody must be well, I bet it's springtime, man, and people aren't sitting around at the house quite as much as they normally do. But that's okay. I don't know what I'm doing wrong on this StreamYard, guys. I copy the link thing and I come back over here and I put it in, and it actually says that I'm live on Instagram, but when I don't get any Instagram alerts, and when I go look on Instagram, I'm not live. And I think it's the whole point of this is to be able to share it on two platforms. Um, Maybe YouTube. I'll fall back. It may be my saving grace. YouTube will show me exactly how you click these buttons, because this is not working for me. And this is on a laptop too. I would think it might have been a tablet, cell phone issue, but I don't know. I was doing some fishing this afternoon. You boys been fishing at all? Hey, welcome into the group, fellas. If you've got any questions, throw them up there. I've just been talking about YouTube mostly, but I did go fishing today. I walked the bank down at the dam, and the wind changed and started blowing up into the dam. And I was fishing mostly with Mike's. It looks very similar to this bait, but it's actually this is a tangled mess. Is what this is. It has a bill like this one, but this isn't actually a big diving crankbait. It gets down into the water a couple, 3-4 feet. But the bill looks similar, but it's a wake bait. It just goes right up under the surface. And that's a good bait to use around here because, excuse me, so many sticks and logs and stuff. Anything you let get too deep usually gets snagged up, and you need to be in the boat or the kayak so you can get your crap back. Fishing from the bank, I like keeping it up high so I don't get snagged. I actually still got snagged today and almost had to go out there and go wading, but I got it back. But I don't know, the wind shifted and really started blowing out there, and I hate being out there in the boat when it's blowing like that. But I just headed it off to the corner over there. I didn't catch anything though. That was a kind of an anticlimactic story, wasn't it? That's not a good fishing page. Where the story ends, I got skunked. Skunk. I did get some good walking in. So there's that. Honestly, though, it's been strange since I moved to Florida. I fished a lot and I posted a lot of stuff, and that content, just like from the metric side of it, it didn't do anything. I mean, there was no point in me even doing it. And then just the pond stuff that I've been doing, because the pond's a complete unicorn. There's no other place. That's the nice thing about ponds. And we got a couple more coming in, so we'll be able to, kind of, you'll see what I'm talking about. Every one of them's different. So, but having Sugar Hill that's growing good fish, being in the right spot, and having something to compare to, that's the problem. I'd say, well, I made a post about it this week. I was holding a 7-pound bass that was out at Mickey's Pond. I'll go by there. It's one of the Wilson Farm ponds. We'll look at it. And guys all the time tell me, my pond's got 7-pounders. Okay, great. But that particular bass that I was holding in that picture was 26 inches long and 7 pounds, well, 25 3/4 inches long, but almost 26 and 7 pounds. I mean, that thing was starved almost to death. I've seen them a little bit skinnier than that, but not very much. That's a really, really poor bass. Again, I can't even do the relative weight. Cheat can probably do it faster than me, but I'm talking like 60s, 68% relative weight or something like that, right? Just terrible, terrible body condition. I've seen bass 13 pounds that are 26 and a half inches long. You know, this much longer weight, set like double that weight. So that's what I'm talking about. That's where the disconnection lies in these conversations. You're holding a 7-pounder that think is proof of a healthy fish population. I'm looking at a 7-pounder that is proof it is not a healthy fish population. And until they learn how to measure like Philip, it's kind of spinning in our wheels. Oh, Frank's got an amazing idea. I haven't even read the whole post. We'll just post it up there, see what Frank says is amazing. Oh, they already have all those, Frank. They have them at the doctor's office too. They're called BMI indexes. It's like mine says I'm like 6 feet and I should be like 114 pounds, you know, or what, some nonsense like that. No, I think it's like 178 or something, 180. Although I'm proud to say I'm under 200. I was 197 pounds the other day. And that's the first time that's happened in a minute, boys. Doing a lot of pedaling on that bike. But unfortunately, Frank, yeah, I don't know how to, yeah, cheeks on it. 24-inch fish should be 8.1. That's exactly right. And again, okay, I thought of this today riding the bike. Let's go back to the conversation that we just had. What were we at? 52 minutes? All right, we got plenty of time. I can go 2 hours, but we're not going to go 2 hours, but I could on this. The fish should be 8.1, right? So people all the time come on here and say, well, I caught a 20-inch fish. It must be 8 pounds. Well, no. Based on the conversation we just had, a 24-inch fish could be 6 pounds if it comes from a terrible fish population. I've also seen 24-inch fish with their egg weight go over 10 pounds. I've seen fish smaller than 24 inches go over 10 pounds this time of year, right? But let's backtrack now. Let's backtrack to what Philip just said. I caught a fish that was 91% relative weight, and his partner caught a fish that was 91% relative weight. And let's say they're more like me in that they've been taking those relative weights for 10 years, not just 1 or 2 like me, right? And you know for a fact that most of the fish in that lake, because you've measured 500 of them over the last decade, are about 90% relative weight. Then you can go, well, I caught a 24-inch bass out there, take 90% of that 8.1, that's probably about what that fish weighed out of that lake. Do you see how I got there? I'll let that rest for a minute because usually when I say stuff, the questions will come. The back data helps you calculate. Same thing applies. Like if you've got a list of say a couple years of data and the bass are averaging 70% relative weight, and you catch a 25-inch bass, it's probably going to be 70% of the standard weight. I would say the only way that changes is in really stunted bass populations. Sometimes you'll have bass that are just terrible. Like I said, 70%, 65%, 70% relative weight, just 12-inch fish that are just skinny and stunted. But then you'll find bass above them that are eating them that are really healthy. But they'll be big. They'll be like the 8-pounders, the 9-pounders that can swallow a 1-pound bass real easy. And they'll be tanks. But that where you'll find that will be really bass heavy waters, usually over 100 acres. Bass heavy waters will all produce a few big bass like that usually. But again, the more acreage of water that you get that's stunted out with bass heavy, the more bigger fish you'll have, and you'll see them, you'll catch them more often in those bigger places than the smaller ones. I think too, like a big bass in a small pond is smart and hard to catch. It's very in tune to its environment. see what Phillips. I'm gonna put it up here so I can read it, Philip. Oh yeah, yeah. Again, it's they what it is, man, is they've got to try to make some excuses that goes back to, I guess, I'm gonna, for lack of a better term, making them right. But what we've done, and it happened to me. I understand what's going on with everyone when we start talking about this stuff. They've never heard it. And for me, like, I can just remember my perspective on it at 20 when I was at Georgia and Dr. Gilbert was teaching this stuff to me. Oh my God. I had no idea how far behind I actually was my reaction. And it was like a gut punch. I felt like I had been sucker punched, you know. I quit watching fishing shows and started reading science books and asking my teachers that fished questions, you know. Um, I felt betrayed by television and everybody on it when I was 20 years old. It's like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. You're not even in the realm of what's real here. And it's because it's so complicated, you can't exist here. There's a reason why it's hard to get into Georgia, you know? And that's just cold hard facts. Just like a school of fish, there's a reason why some of them get picked off and some of them live a long time. It's just how our world works. But I have found that, well, Andrew said it on Tackle Talk podcast, and I've worked on it for 30 years, being able to articulate this. I have a feel like I have a good skill to be able to articulate complex pond ideas into language that people can understand, that might not necessarily have a fisheries degree. And then once we get them coached up, like we got Philip, now Philip's walking around basically like a biologist at this level, at the level he's on, and that makes me very proud. I like to see that. I like to see the kids get the information, or Philip's certainly no kid, but anyone get the information and use it that way. That's what I intended for it to be, to help people understand and better manage their ponds. But I'm not coming. I'm coming at it from a place that I want to help the fish, number one. But I'm also coming from a place that I'm very aware of the amount of engagement this type of stuff like creates. I've been around it, so this is very calculated on my part as well. This would be a very good fishing program. We get these little ponds going, and they're a ball. And the nice thing about ponds is it's not a big lake, right? When you go to a pond that's got a little problem, say, and you correct it, you'll see the results pretty quickly. And again, it goes back to our little measurements. We'll see it in our data. We'll see, all right, our bass were like this, and now our bass are like that, and our catch rates are going up. And you can see it if you write it down like data, I guess, is the best way to put that. Oh, you're good, Frank. You said you were driving, man, so you got to do. I appreciate you watching. You guys are dedicated. Appreciate that. Does this screen look like it's flashing a little bit to you guys? I'm wondering if I need to change lights. I see it. It looks flashy to me, but maybe I'm just, no, it's definitely got a flicker to it of some kind. No flicker to that? All right, thanks. It's just on my end then. That's cool. Cool. I don't know, boys. I have confidence, though, that all the stuff that we're talking about and a few videos, we'll take these lives and we'll add, a few guests. I'm going to get Clint on here from Sugar Hill, get him to talk about Sugar Hill, give him a good plug, good advertisement. He's been so kind to let us use that. want to get him as much promotion as possible. Actually, I got him a good plug on WSB this morning. I was on the radio with Captain Mac. Captain Mac gave me a call the other day, and I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but I know him from growing up around the lake and stuff briefly, and social media a little bit. And he's taken over for O'Neal Williams at WSB on O'Neal's morning fishing and hunting thing that he did for years, for gosh, my whole life. O'Neal Williams was always over there at that. It's that 4 to 6 a.m. time slot. Come on, Frank, you'll get there. So anyway, I called in and talked to Captain Mac this morning on his program, and it sounds like he's going to be having a podcast for that as well. So that's cool. That's another place that we can do some, spreading the word and podcasting and talking to new folks, engaging new folks. And well, unfortunately, we don't have many new folks on here tonight. 3 folks, but that's okay. All the usual suspects. I hope that one day we'll have, some engagement along the lines of, people who have pond problems, and be able to work through those ideas with them as well, and just give people access to, I guess it's, to me, this is like, if you're good at it, it's like you can make it a decent podcast and make it interactive with you guys, with the guests, and people can ask questions and interact in real time. That seems better to me, instead of having a video that you go back and watch. Now, I don't know how much we've gone for an hour, and usually by the end of the week, I'll have maybe 20 or 25 viewer hours that count towards monetization from these little videos like this. So if I go do this once a week, I'm getting 100 hours a month. And the G-Crack Bellows Gill review that I did took off. I got 11,000 views. I got 10,000 in like a month. Just went nuts. And I thought it was going to go to 1 million, and it did not. It went to 11,000 installed. But it got me like 500 viewer hours just for that one video. And I got to get to 3,000 before I get like partial money monetization or something. And then 4,000 for full like monetization on YouTube. But still, even at 100 hours a week, or I mean, I'm sorry, 100 hours a month, I'm not that far off. I'll have that 3,000 hours in about a month, and then maybe by the end of the year. Oh, there's Frank. Frank's back, everyone. Welcome back, Frank. Glad to have you, man. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to get on some of that action again, Philip. There was that fish on the dam that I missed, and yeah, I'm all about that. I'll be heading back up I am waiting on Amazon to deliver products. I've got a Seki disc and some Green Clean Pro, and I'm going to do my first Amazon video, probably just live at the pond, do it in real time, do everything. I don't mean real time. I mean like at an actual job site. So it has, some relevance. And I got to get up there for that. But I got some buddies that are big time turkey hunters, and they are going after the Osceolas when turkey season comes in, and they're starting here. And I'm going to try to help them get a couple Osceolas so they can get out of here and get into Georgia and get an Eastern and then head west. And they're going to try to get the slam. So I'll be stuck here. I think that's next week. I'm stuck here for about a week. But then after that, I'm wide open. That would be awesome. Yeah, definitely do that, man. That would be awesome. That place is killer. So what Phillips guys is private water, 40, 50 acres of water over there, but it's switching up into that region of it hasn't been perfectly managed and it has crappie, so it's a big enough place it can support some crappie. It'll be balanced okay, but it's got very light pressure. It's private. It's like locked away and on completely private land and back in the woods. So it's one of those situations where the fish aren't used to lures, and you can go in there with a couple. We had a ball, man. We really had a good day. But I had one. I had one down there on the dam, and again, it was by the bush. There was actually a stick. There was like a sedge or a rush, that came up out of the water, big, and there was a stick, a treetop, kind of like a mini blowdown right there by it. And I believe it was on the Bellows Gill. It was a big 5.8 it rolled, and I could see it falling because the water's pretty clear. And man, that fish hit it, and it was a big old fish, and I really fanned it, like just whiffed it. Don't know how I missed it. I felt like I stuck it really well, and it was one of those things where I had it for like 3 seconds and it was gone, and it was just like you did not, whatever happened, you did not get a hook in it. But my God Almighty, was that I would like to have got my hands on that one. That would be the kind of lake, that 40, 50 acre size, private, nobody's been messing with it. Maybe that's exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see maybe the smaller fish are a little skinny. You might maybe your 12s to 16 inches. You'll probably have a few too many in that range. But then the ones that are usually big, the ones that go to 26, 28 inches in there, if you can get them 28, when they're eating everything, that's where you can find a tank in a place like that. You can find one big, big in a place like that sometimes. And I'm just speaking from using electrofishing boat, you know. Um, that's where most of my experience lies, is just shocking them up. Yeah, those red-eyed fish, man. I was looking that up, and I was thinking about that too, man. One thing that can happen, and I got a question about that today, and the reason why it was a time of year, I think, that to keep an eye on that and look closer at that. I don't know if I'm gonna have to key it out, literally, make sure we're not either dealing with a red-eye bass, or were we over there during the spawn when the bass's eyes will turn red? There are certain times of the year, the male bass, I believe it is, their eyes will turn red like that during the spawn. I can't remember why. I'm pretty sure it was the males. But bass's eye, like, a guy just tagged me today, and it's because it's today. It's because it's March. It's like that is something that happens. And then they'll go back to the normal color a little later. I can't remember why though. But then there's also a red eye bass, and there's various species of bass that can hybridize and whatnot. Lord knows what we're dealing with. Anyway, yeah, those crazy red-eyed 1 pound bass probably need to go next to some hush puppies too. Probably the best thing for that place. So if we're talking about a 40-acre lake and thinning down a bass population sufficiently, and that's another thing I've noticed too. It's like, let's exist in reality. Let's say that lake is your lake, and you're like, hey man, I'd like to see some bigger bass in there. I would recommend that you get on the crappie right now, early this spring, and keep every crappie you catch. That'll get some biomass out. Remember, when we're harvesting bass, or I'm sorry, when we're harvesting fish, any fish you harvest, you're creating space in the pond for another fish. Okay, you're freeing up zooplankton. You're freeing whatever that fish is eating. If you catch a bluegill, you're freeing up aquatic insects and zooplankton for other bluegill to eat. If you catch a shad in its back and drag it out of there, Well, you've created that whatever those shad feeding on that plankton in the film or whatever, there's filter feeding out there. There's more of that out there left for another shad to grow up and eat on. When you keep a bass out, there's more bluegill and other small fish surviving that would have normally not survived all year had you left that bass in there. And that's what pond management is understanding, okay, we're trying to bump it towards big bass. So we have to be aware when too many bass starts becoming a problem, because too many bass means little bass. Back to the point that I was trying to make, it's your 40-acre lake and you want to remove enough fish to make a difference. You're looking at 21-pound bass per acre. 20 bass at the weigh a pound times 40 acres. You got a project. You go out there and catch 15 fish, you haven't done anything to it. Right? And there's a huge disconnect right there on dudes. I can't tell you how many guys. I'm going to go out there and I'll go fix this with my fishing pole. Yeah. Okay. Well, you need 1,000 bass out of that thing, bad boy. And then you guess what you need to do that. You need to do that again next year. You need to do it 2 times usually. And then you'll see a 40-acre lake change. Now you go out there and catch and pretend like you've done all this work and done all these things. But this is normally what I see. And then when I go out there and take my measurements, none of my relative weight measurements have changed. No measurable difference. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking to people from a pond management perspective. Is it making a measurable difference in your life? Did you go buy crawfish and your bass went from 95% relative weight to 101% relative weight? I can guarantee they did not, because I've never seen that happen. Now, in their minds, dudes make up in their minds, oh man, these bass are way bigger after we put those crawfish in there. No, they're actually not. I measured them. I measured them before you put the crawfish in, and I measured them after you put the crawfish in. And there's absolutely no measurable difference in the crawfish that you threw in there. Okay. The fact that you took $800 and spending it on fast food probably would make you want to say those things. I can guarantee you that. But I can promise you, it's my pond. I'm managing Sugar Hill Outdoors pond the way I would manage it if it was mine. And do you see me going over there and throwing a bunch of forage fish in there for those bass? You see me throwing prawns in there? You see me throwing shad, shiners? You see me trying to feed those fish anything? The only thing I do is feed bluegill and let bass eat those bluegill. I don't have 10 grand in that place in 3 years. It's like $1,500 for the fish. I don't even know what the feed bill is. I have to ask. Probably $1,000 or $15, $100 a year on feed, something like that. You don't need to go spend all your dang money on forage for bass. That's just a waste of money. They'll eat everything you got. It's like having 114-year-old boys out there. It's like, good luck feeding that. You ain't got enough. You better make the pond produce those fish that they need. And to do that, that's usually controlling their numbers. They're such good predators, they'll just crush everything in it. And that's why we have to harvest the 1-pounders. I've never had a pond that I managed that I didn't at some point in time. Usually if it's a new pond, it's usually about depends on who stocked it and how much they stocked too. But if I stocked it, it'll be about year 5 or 6 before harvest will be necessary. If somebody else stocked it, sometimes year 3 or 4. But you'll usually have a time period after the pond is initially built where you can't mess that up. Fish are going to grow great. We'll see how good you are at managing ponds about year 4 or 5. Once it's gotten to that point, we'll know. Frank. Yeah, I would say. I mean, probably. Probably similar to that, Frank. Definitely. No, you can't like it's again a measurement. If you go down to the fish hatchery, all right, and you dip out 10 pounds of bluegill and you pour them out onto a table to where you can see how many bluegill that is. And then when you write the check, and it's like $300 for those fish, right? And you're looking at all those fish and they're just flopping everywhere. Oh, 10 pounds. And then you put the right kind of calculation to it. That will feed one bass to 1 pound. So in our situation, in a 2.5 acre pond, we have 100 bass. So we would have to take those 10-pound increments and multiply that by 100. And when you start talking about that many fish and feeding bass just in a 2.5 acre pond, I literally need a 53-foot trailer full of bluegill. You want to feed some bass? Yeah, bring me $70,000 worth of bluegill in here. Bring me the whole trailer. Now we're feeding bass. And I don't want to buy $70,000 worth of bluegill, especially when I don't have to. When all I got to do is keep some 1 pound bass. I see that. I've seen that so many times, though, y'all. So many times. Guys are going to fix it with their wallet. You go out there, you do a shocking job. You say, hey, man, your bass are stunted. You need to keep some. The first thing they do is go buy some forage from some fish salesman. And the second thing they do is start sinking brush piles. And not knowing that the forage that they stocked on Friday didn't make it till Sunday. Don't really care. Again, unless you went, again, did you go get $75,000 worth? Did he back the whole 53-foot trailer in here? Did you put some real money in there, or did you go get $1,000 worth of bluegill? Because they got dusted up. It's like putting them in a prison. It's like putting us in a prison yard right now. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna make it. So that's the part dudes don't get. How quick their $2,000, $3,000, even $10,000 worth of bluegill gets smoked in a weekend, because they don't understand, if there's enough bass in there to out eat the natural bluegill reproduction that's popping off, each 3-inch bluegill lays 10,000 eggs. Right? Hand-sized bluegill are up around 40, 50,000 eggs every month. So if you've got that many fish coming off and being born into the environment, and the bass are chewing through that, your little fish haul tank ain't doing nothing. You've got to balance the environment to produce the bass. That's it. That's it. And I don't know, man. I just try to tell people the truth. All you can do. Sometimes they hear what they want to hear, but the good thing about always telling people the truth is I don't have to remember what I told them. Like everybody I've talked to on the internet for the last 4 years, I don't have to remember any of them or any sort of nonsense that I happen to say to somebody anywhere, because I've told everybody the truth the whole time I've been on here. You know, it's easier and consistent. It's very consistent that way. But some people don't like that. Some people don't like the truth, man. Hey, 7 folks, what's up, everyone? I was getting ready to switch it down. It's just all the usual suspects in here this evening. And is Debo going live today? I don't even know. I don't want to block on Debo if y'all are going to go watch him. Let me check. Philip, I think it has been 4 years, my friend. I do believe it was maybe a lot longer, 2019, 2020. Because I came across September 2020 and like remember this day thing on, I think it was on Facebook or something, with a 5.8 bellows gill. So I had been online a good year, maybe a little longer than that, doing this before I got hooked up with the bellows gill guys. So it's been a minute, man. It really has. Hey, I'm proud to be here, boys. Let's see. I don't doesn't look like Debo's got anything marked to go tonight. I'm probably gonna go to town. Judge Judy Frank. Are you serious right now? We're quoting Judge Judy on here. I can honestly say I've never seen 1 second of Judge Judy, but I do know who you're talking about. Although in my defense, I am not a television watcher. Um, I had TV at Valdosta. When I started college, we had television in our dorm room. But at 20, I transferred to Athens, and that's when I was living off campus. It didn't come with the room. You had to order it through the apartment, and pay for it like a regular person. And when again, going back to talking about Dr. Gilbert and everything, we started talking about this earlier. When I learned how far behind I was, how much reading I had to do, and exactly what I had stepped off into to get a science degree that I'm holding, um, well, I knew I had messed up, and I knew I didn't even really have the money to be paying for a cable bill anyway. So I just didn't get cable hooked up in Athens. And it didn't take me very long to figure out. I just canceled the cable guy's visit. I'm like, no, man, you don't need to come here. I got books to read. I have done something to myself that I did not realize, kind of what I got into. It was this hard school. And when I got out of school, then I was working for myself, and I was in the same situation. Television was counterproductive. I didn't need to be sitting on the couch because I didn't have anybody sitting there telling me you better be at work at 8 o'clock. I don't know. The hardest thing, trust me, boys, the hardest thing to do when you work for yourself is get up and get motivated and get out of the house and go when only you are responsible for that. That it's tough when there's not a person in the world who gives a rat crap what you are, but you, yeah. That's where people fail. And that much freedom right there can sink you. You got to have self discipline right there. But it's for all those reasons, Frank, that I do know who Judge Judy is, but I really am not a big TV. Oh wait, who else? So we got Wapner, The People's Court. That was my grandma used to watch that. Now I do remember that. Yeah, The People's Court with Judge Wapner. Whew, man, talk about a throwback. I have not thought about that in 100 years. Hey, what's up, Kirk? Welcome in, man. Oh, Valdosta TV. Let's see. Philip's got a question. He says Valdosta TV was CBS out of Tallahassee, NBC. No, man. Like we got our radio. Like the Gulf 104 is still over there, man. It's a good radio station. But all our stuff came from the coast. I didn't really have at Valdosta. It was anything local came from Florida, either Jacksonville or usually Tallahassee though. Tallahassee's just a smidge closer, but I think we would always go to Tallahassee, but of course, Tallahassee is where Florida State was. So we'd also cruise over to Georgia Southern in Statesboro, Georgia. A good school over there. Got in some trouble. Merv Griffin. Wow. What did we watch the other day? I was at my dad's house and there was something he flipped it and oh my God, what was it? I think like Lawrence Welk or something. Was that the one with the big band and the people would dance on there? It was like American Bandstand in the 60s or Soul Train in 1955. Gulf 104. You dang right, man. Gulf 104 is a good rock station, man. I could probably still get it. I might be able to get it right here. I haven't even tried to see if I can pick up Gulf 104. I might be able to get it. I'm pretty close. Rock 104 out of Gainesville. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. Man, things have changed a lot, haven't they, boys? It's amazing how fast time goes by. I just turned 51 the other day, and I don't know. It doesn't bother me anymore. My age. I'm just happy to be here, man. I've lost buddies and acquaintances, friends, and shoot, I'm proud to be here. Pretty healthy. Had a little bit of health difficulties, but I'm not dying. And I've been cycling. I like riding through the forest. I almost got run over by a bear the other day, y'all, and I mean for real run over, like Roquan Smith. Um, it was a pretty big one too. And usually the big ones are a little bit more aware. Like you'll get up on the little ones, but this one was pretty large. I would say 250 or 300-pound range. And I was going down the street on the bike, and I usually don't ride fast, but there's one spot where there's pavement, so I was going a little bit faster. And the bear was off in the bushes. There's actually two of them, and I got up on him quick and startled him. And it just took and tore ass across the street. They'd probably come across the street, earlier, and I scared it, so it probably ran back in the direction it came from, But I scared it out of the edge of the woods, and I didn't know it was there. And the only reason I didn't get just absolutely trucked was I wasn't standing. I just happened to not be where it crossed the road. It was rolling. I mean, it was so much faster than me, and I was going pretty fast. But those bears are fast. Like when they want to run fast, you're not getting away from them. I'm not scared of them at all, though. They're not like mean. They're weird. I'm glad they're not mean. I'm glad they're not like they don't know how they could be. They're like the black bears are little fraidy bears. They're not near as bad as the brown bears, the grizzly bears out west. Mm-mm. I ain't even. I've only seen two, and we're going to a new river. If I see one of them, I ain't going anywhere near them brown bears. Forget about that. But that was the most sleepless night I ever had in Montana. Buddy drove me back. We're going to this creek somewhere between Billings and oh, Yellowstone in Montana. North, there's a little piece of Yellowstone that comes up and gets into Montana. We were pretty close to that. He drove us back in there though, man. We went way back. There wasn't anybody back there. We were way back a two-path road. Got to the camp back there, and the sign was like a billboard with all the warnings about put up your food, and we're sleeping in tents, going cheat. It was in our 20s, going fly fishing and I don't know. The thing about it was a bear came into camp that night. I could hear it walking around, and I was terrified of it. And it didn't do anything, but there was an animal in camp that night. I'm assuming it was a bear. I didn't look. Um, See, I got up and got into the truck about halfway through the night and blamed it on the cold. But that was the most sleepless night I ever had around them damn grizzly bears. I want no part of them. What? Mike says he's listened to the same radio station since the 70s. Now, my friend, that is impressive. They, I'd say to Philip probably remember 96 Rock out of Atlanta. Now, if 96 Rock was still 96 Rock, I would have listened to it since then. But they took 96 Rock away. Oh God, I don't even know how many years ago. Um, but 96 Rock was a classically good station in Atlanta for a really long time. And I listened to it my whole life. But like I said, I mean, it's been gone. Like I said, boys, we're getting pretty old. It's been gone for some years. Oh, but the Merv Griffin. No, I think this what my dad and I watched something. Was it Merv Griffin? No, I don't think it was Merv Griffin. I don't know. It cracked me up though. They had a big band and they just all they did was play music and then they just rotated like singers and then the people would dance and they all it was like they were just doing it to be on TV. It's pretty funny though. The one out of Gainesville, Georgia. Mm, I know what you're talking about, man, because I used to live over there way, but I can't remember now. Oh man. And there used to be a pretty good station. It was the X station. I can't remember the numbers, but it had like I don't know, it had more grunge music, more like Nirvana and things like that, just a little more younger, like youthful kind of. And that was a really good station in Atlanta too for a long time. They would have just a little different, off of 96 Rock was just like it's just a classic rock station, but um they had a deep, deep, deep playlist. So they 96 Rock did a good job playing deep classic rock tracks. Like I had to give them credit on that. Like a lot of these classic rock stations. 96 Rock was like Gulf 104. Like that's a good radio station. Um, which didn't make any sense to me why they went out of business. Like, what the hell happened to 96 Rock? How do you like I don't get it. But I'm not in the radio business either. So anyway, 8 folks. Anybody got any pond questions? Pond folks in the world today? Make sure I didn't miss any. Scroll back through the chitter chatter, chit chat. Man, I tell you what I want, boys. I know I've been dieting. What time is it? It's already after 8. I'm not supposed to eat anymore. I am dying from scrambled eggs. Pros and cons of pond eyes. Well, there's a good one. My friend Alex comes through with a question, making me go back to work. I can't just sit here and talk about, I don't know, the rodeo or whatever I want to talk about. Pond eyes suck for fish production. So what are you doing with a pond eye? What you will do with a pond eye is limit light penetration. And the idea is since you don't have light going to the bottom of the pond, like I said, what will we do without Frank? I mean, really. Yeah, this is mainstream media, all right. God help them if they put me over there. Anyway, Lawrence Welk. There it is, Philip. Thank you very much. That's who I was referring to. We watched Lawrence Welk, and my dad was clicking through the channels and was like, "Oh my God, it's Lawrence Welk." I was like, "No, wait, I've never even seen it. Put it on." And so we sat there and we watched Lawrence Welk and laughed and actually had a really good time watching Lawrence Welk. But I can honestly tell you, man, I don't need to see Lawrence Welk anymore. Anyway, back to Flip the Kicks' pond eye question. So if you put dye in the water, you're limiting the light penetration, right? That reduces the energy source for plants. So let's use a hypothetical situation, real time situation. Let's use a real time situation, not a hypothetical situation, because I've done this enough times. I'll just use the real time situation. Where am I going to use a pond eye? I'm not using it at Sugar Outdoors. Hell no. Any place I want fish production? No, because the shading shades the plankton. It reduces the base of the food chain, which reduces the numbers of fish the pond can hold. So if you are concerned about having good numbers of fish in the pond, you don't want to put pond eye in there, right? So the first thing, rule number one, when you see me using pond eyes, I'm using it probably in a pond under an acre that I consider a put and take fishery. That's in my mind, just in general, just a group in general, a pond under an acre, I'm stocking to keep the balance. I'm just using a fish truck. If something gets off, I'll just throw more fish into it. I'm not managing a fish population like I'm talking about in these larger places where I'm harvesting and not doing the stocking, because that's for bigger bodies of water. In smaller bodies of water, I'll just throw it in there. But that being said, I'm not concerned about the fish population where I'm using the pond eye from a productivity standpoint. And if I am, I'll put the bluegill on a feeder and fix it that way. I know I'm reducing the amount of fish that the pond can hold by using the pond eye, because I'm reducing the light, I'm reducing the penetration. But I might have a situation where so much phosphorus, say I've got runoff from agriculture, or I don't know, it's usually agriculture runoff that causes this problem. So I'll just leave it at that. You've got so much nutrients coming in that the plankton bloom is so thick, the water looks like pea soup and stinks. And it's not other plants, it's just plankton and it can even get thick on the surface and look really nasty. Excuse me. So you would put that pond eye in there to try to battle a excessive phytoplankton problem, right? I've used it in that exact scenario where I've got a small pond, quarter of an acre, tenth of an acre, whatever, just very small, with a massive phytoplankton problem, and the fish are dying. There's no fish in the pond anyway because the plankton is killing the fish. How does the plankton kill the fish? So what happens is you can only have so many alive things underneath the water. And at night, that plankton uses uses carbon dioxide and produces the oxygen in the water. But at night, that plankton uses the oxygen. And when the density of the plankton gets so thick like that, it uses up all the oxygen at night and it kills the fish, kills everything that relies on the oxygen. So again, see how we kind of come in a circle back around to where I'm in a place where I don't really care about the fish population, where I'm using the pond eye. See what I'm saying? If there's any kind of fish production, like, hey, we want the kids to fish, or we don't care about the fish, but we also, we want them to be healthy, I'm not using pond eye. I'm going to use another product, and I'm going to let the fish be healthy without the shading to the base of the food chain. That's just how I used it professionally. All right. I know, right? Frank needs to start a comedy podcast. He's hilarious. Hey, Steven, what's up, man? Yep. I'm going to agree with you, Steven. Yeah, that's a good one, my friend. Like Frank was talking about, this is mainstream media. We don't. We'd like to beat around the bush and not be direct with our answers here. But he's right. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. You know what I mean? Why do I have to, like, if you use pond eye, yeah. And it's funny too that the aerator goes with the pond eye, because it's like the pond eye guy, he's dying his pond, so he's clueless about he doesn't know anything about zooplankton or phytoplankton at all. He has no concept of the aquatic environment whatsoever, right? And then he goes and buys a $3,000 fountain, because again, that 3,000 fountain is just blowing water in the air. It is really not aerating his pond. It's really not doing anything. Most of those things are completely just running. The only thing you're doing is making the power company some money. And I know this because, again, let's go back to that situation I just described, where you're in a place that agriculture from turkey runoff is killing the pond due to phytoplankton BOD. I that little fountain, nah, man, it ain't doing nothing. And I know it's not because I've seen dudes with those ponds put fountains, and I mean more than one. Every fountain in the world's not saving you when you from a BOD problem. It's not happening. Um, so yeah, the pond eye and the aerator is just like I like lighting. I hate my fish population and like lighting $3,000 on fire. Steven. Steven and I were roommates in college, so our rapport goes back a long way of making fun of others. Good to see you, my friend. Hey, what's going on with Debo, man? Is he cool? Hey, we got 11 people now. What's up, everyone? I'm famous. Thank you. You guys can. I'll be doing. What's that thing where you can like pay me to like wish you happy birthday? I'll start doing that for $1,000. I don't know the crap people pay for. I've got something in my eye. I might be leaving us because of eye problems. Oh no, I'm good to go. Oh God, Stephen brings up other points. The hybrid sunfish. What a nightmare. Oh, hey, we got somebody with a problem. Somebody with a problem named Chris. Let's see what Chris has got. All right. He's culling smaller bass from 15 acres. All right. Too many that size. Probably. I would say that's a safe assumption. Most are in the 90-ish relative weight. I like that. If you catch one with eggs, you cull or release. All right. That's a good question, man. A really good question. um, I would say that if your 15-acre pond has crappie, your bass are going to stay in that 90-ish relative weight area no matter what you do. So most people are in the problem I just described, have that problem right there where, we're talking about a simple system like this bass bluegill system I've got. There's no other competing fish in there. So if my bass start getting skinny, I know it's because they're getting crowded because there's no other predators. You're in a situation if your 15-acre pond has crappie, no crappie, okay, good. And the occasional counter catfish doesn't bother me then. All right, you're in good shape. So for anybody out there with 15 acres of water, we'll use Chris's as an example, and then we'll continue without this example. But if you did have crappie, you're in a terrible situation because it's almost impossible to harvest enough. It is impossible. You're not harvesting enough crappie out of 15 acres to make any difference. And your bass are going to be stuck in that 85% to 90 at best relative weight range because the crappie are taking away forage from the bass. They're competing with them. And again, when you measure a lot of ponds for relative weight, you'll see that. That being said, Chris is not in that situation. He doesn't have crappie. He's just got copper nose and he's got an occasional channel. You're in good shape, man. You're in real good shape. So all you got to do is just cull the smallers. And I'll give you the general, and then I'll give you how to do that more specifically. Generally speaking, cull bass under 16 inches, throw back over 16 inches. Okay. Now, if you have a whole pond of fish that are like 12 to 14 inches, just stacked in there, right? I would put back any 15-inch fish too. But at that 16-inch mark, bass get really good at eating other bass. That's the part at which their mouth is getting big enough that they can start consuming other 1-pounders at above 16 inches. So in your situation, those 16-inch bass are your friend. You're going to want to put them back egg weight or no egg weight at this moment in time. Now, let's say we go out a year. No, let's say we give it plenty of time. Let's say we go out 24 months from now, and now your bass are at 100% relative weight on average. Okay. Now we're in a different situation, and we'll be talking about possibly you might be harvesting fish in that 16-inch category if they're looking thin. That's something you see happen sometimes, but you cross that bridge when you get there. So right now, what I'd be doing if I was you is just weighing and measuring the fish, the bass that you're catching and keeping, and that way you have an average relative weight. So you have a good starting point there, and you're also keeping up with an exact weight of what you've removed, so you know exactly what you've taken out. And with that data and the relative weight, just come back on here, man. Throw the stuff up. We can, we can guide you through that. Your pond's going to be fine. Let's see what we're talking about here. Oh, I think you guys are in a different conversation than I'm in. Here's a question from Kix, though. When would one want an aeration system? It's promoted like crazy from all the companies. Yeah, because that's sales, man. It's sales. Let's see. The times I've seen aerators help me. Again, we're going into small pond management. We're not going to be anywhere near big water because when you start getting, I mean by big, I mean a couple acres or bigger. Once you get out to like 5 acres, it takes a hell of an aerator to aerate that. It's a lot of water. You get in and just like physically, like mechanically aerating that much water is not possible with these little dinky things. You got to put a lot of water in the air. And it's just so much water. Again, if you have a BOD problem, like the algae pulling the oxygen out of the water, spraying this little water up over here in the air, when you've got a source that's just pulling it out, just extracting it like ridiculous, like just it can't keep up. No matter how much you blow that water up in the air, when you've got a problem under the water, you can't keep up with it. You're not going to mechanically fix it usually. But problems like duckweed, floating weed problem, water fern, duckweed, water meal. I've seen it on all three. Small ponds with a lot of waterfowl and swampy areas that flood. You can't keep them. You can't. There's sometimes you can't keep duckweed off a pond. It's just in an area that it's not coming off, and it'll cover the pond thick, a couple inches thick. So that duckweed is creating a situation very similar to that pond eye. It's limiting the light penetration. Duckweed's even worse. It's really like stretching a tarp over the pond. It'll straight kill it. By agitating the surface of the water, because where you'll see duckweed and watermeal problems is on ponds less than 3 acres in size and on ponds that are surrounded by trees. The trees block the wind and wave action. Duckweed won't be a problem. It doesn't like wind. It'll be on. It's on Rodman. It's right behind the house right now. But the wind, it's so windy out there. The wind just beats it to death and keeps it under control physically. So I'd say that's a place that I've seen aeration help. Now, those bottom diffuser aerators, I kind of like those, but not for the reasons why they sell them. I've seen those bottom diffusers. They'll put the thing on the bottom and it blows the bubbles up, and the bubbles roll up. If you put that in the deep water and you undersize it on your pond, you create an upwelling. You create a current that's pulling the water from the bottom of the pond up to the surface. And the water at the bottom of the pond will have pine straw and leaves and what's called detritus. That detritus holds nutrients. So when you create an upwelling with those things, you'll bring in nutrients from the bottom of the pond up, especially if it's an old pond, and create a nutrient flow up. And I've seen ponds go from crystal clear, just like vodka water, to green and really nice 20 inches of visibility, like a fertilized pond, like perfectly perfect for fish production. Like it just changed from like, oh, it's just another clear water pond. I'm going to struggle. It's going to be low productivity. And they put in those aerators. Now, see, the aerators are supposed to clear the water. The aerators did not do at all what they were advertised to do. They did the opposite actually, but the people bought them because they bought the sales. They bought the marketing, the same marketing that's got everybody selling, stocking bass too much and selling people crawfish to feed as forage is the same marketing that's selling them these fountains and these aerators and things. But like I said, I have seen those bottom diffuser aerators create a really good situation set up the right way. I've also seen those bottom diffuser aerators really hold fish in a unique way, especially if you've got threadfin shad. They seem to like those bubbles and hang out around it. And again, I'll be using, if you see me putting it in, I'll be using it for a funny way that's not advertised the way that they advertise what those things should be used for. They don't work the way they say they do, like you said, but I have used them and I have gotten interesting results with them. But I'm also not a salesman of anything. I have used those surface fountains to help with the duckweed, though. That is certainly true. Smaller bodies of water. Again, the smaller the body of water, the easier it is to mechanically aerate it. Therefore, the easier it is to be able to control it. You're just dealing with something that's controllable. Oh, Anthony, I don't know, man. Should I go live tomorrow too? I actually wasn't intending on being on here. I was trying to figure out how to go live on here on Instagram, and I keep failing epically. I'm not connecting it to StreamYard exactly right. But yeah, I can go live again tomorrow night if you guys want to, but I don't have to. Just depends on what y'all want to do. Grind. Oh, regarding Debo. Okay. Oh, I see what's going on. Steven's bringing up another great point. We're going to use that. So I'm going to touch on Debo, though, man. Well, if you guys talk to him, you give him my best. And if you tell him he needs my help, he always has it. But Steven, running the aeration all day and not at night. All right. So yeah, if you're going to run your aeration, you own a pond and you're going to be smart about your aerator, right? What did I just say? Phytoplankton produces oxygen during the daytime and it uses it at night. Okay. That's how that works. That's just how the oxygen cycle works in the pond. There's no point in running an aerator in the daytime. It will not outproduce the phytoplankton photosynthesis and put more oxygen into the water. Okay. So whenever you see a fountain running in the daytime, you're just burning power, right? You ain't doing nothing. If you can move enough water to even matter, which is a big if, but if it's a small pond and you have a fountain and you can move enough water to even matter, running it at night when everything is consuming oxygen is the intelligent time of the day to be running and spending money. Was that condescending enough, Stephen? Because we like to be condescending sometimes. You know, science. Use the science, boys. So if you're going to spend your money aerating, use it at the smart time. Use it at night. I won't be condescending. Just be joking. He wants any tricks to make it stop snowing long enough that he can go fishing this weekend. Well, yeah, I had that problem too, bro. And you know what I did? I moved. I'm kidding. It sucks. I don't know how you guys deal with that. We've discussed that on many lives with Frank, and like the bass season. That's against my religion. I'm not living anywhere. There's a bass season. There's no season for bass here. You bass fish whenever you feel like bass fishing. Like today, I went to town. I came back. I was like, wow, the wind is really blowing against the dam, like in an unnatural amount, and in a way that it hasn't been done really ever since I've lived here. I think I'm going to go cast some big lures down the bank in the wind. It didn't work, but still, I had that option today. Poor Frank doesn't have that option. It's just frozen. It's a frozen tundra. It's like the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, where you have to cut open the animal and get inside its stomach to stay alive there. Poor Frank probably has to kill animal after animal just to stay unfrozen. You need to move to Florida. It's nice here, man. It was like 79 degrees today. I rode my bike. Got a little bit of a sunburn too, looks like. $50 millimeters of rain. Temperature dropped 12 degrees, but the bluegill were biting. Hey, bonus points. That's awesome. See, Anthony says he's going to fire some questions Sunday, but he can't get in the mix today. Well, Anthony, that's enough for me to go. Let's just plan on going Sunday night about 7 o'clock. We'll do it again. And well, Frank's quit the show, everyone. He's gotten upset with me, and he's no longer going to be with us. He's given up. Ontario fishing regulations summary. Now, I think sham for FU is correct spelling, Kirk. That's a big sham. And the other part, I can't say things on, I'm not even monetized yet, so I have to be very careful about what I say here. It's like, yeah, you remember all those things you said on live? You're not monetized now, big boy. Sorry about that. You need to take that potty mouth back down to the lake where that belongs. Yeah, 8 millimeters in Celsius. He's a Canadian dude, and I think 50 millimeters is like 60 or 70 feet, and I don't know what Celsius even is. Some kind of weird thing about temperature. see, Frank and I just think a lot alike. Just a lot alike there. There's a lot going on here, Frank. We're like brothers from another mother here. Yeah, dude. No such thing as like bass season. It's always bass season. What seasons do we have? Like there are seasons on the saltwater fish. Those change. I haven't learned them yet though. Usually I just go fishing over at the beach, and that doesn't go very successfully either. I have gone several times. I mean, I had the idea, like, have you seen the guy who has a little cart and he goes to the beach and he catches fish and on cut bait and he shows people all over? I was watching that dude. I was like, man, I could make a show like that too. I could add that to mine. That's a great idea, but it helps when you go over there to the beach that you hook a fish and, have something to show everyone. Me sitting around on a beach watching everybody else drink beer and not catch nothing is not a very entertaining program. And that's all I've been able to capture thus far. But it's not bad over at the coast. Now, I did go with Captain Socrates over in Crystal River, and that was awesome. And I caught a huge tarpon last summer. It was a huge 120-pound tarpon, I think. Oh, it was, well, I'm proud to say that I landed that thing. But at the same time, man, I don't need any more of that. It was really hot that day though. Like if it wasn't such a hot day, I probably wouldn't have gotten, like, I got like heat exhaustion from it, because what happened that day is one of the Captain Socrates follows here. He's been following for a while. And then I got down here and I wanted to go fishing over there. I know it's good fishing over there. And we went and we flew tarpon after tarpon that day. I bet we flew 6 tarpon. and every one of them just threw the hook, threw it. Can't pin them, can't pin them. And after messing around with that several hours, we went back around and messed around with some snook, caught some nice snook, and they're a lot of fun. I had a really big one on, but it busted me off on a bridge piling. It would have by far been my PB snook, but it got me. Anyway, that was about the end. I mean, he had set the trip up that way so we could at least he knew where to go catch the snook. It was pretty easy, you know. It wasn't like the tarpon, but sure enough, it was over by a dock where guys come back in and they had those big like catamaran style boats with like 4 or 5 outboards, like 300 or 400 outboards across the back. They're like $2 million boats or some crazy crap, you know. There was a marina right there that the snook were in that we were catching. Those boats had come back. They were coming back that afternoon from coming offshore. And he was like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome," because what happens is those guys dump their tanks right there in the marina when they come back. Just they just dump them. I guess they have like a vent or something at the bottom. They can do that. He goes, "It's fixing to be on right here." Well, it was because when they dumped those tanks, we ended up hooking that 120-pound tarpon right there, and it was a half a day trip, but we had already run the half a day a little long, like 2 in the afternoon. It was like 115-degree heat index, and I got into that damn tarpon. And man, by the time I had it to the boat, I was tired as that fish was. It's just because of the heat. I wasn't used to the heat, but it was an experience, man. I caught one stinking fish that day, and it was the biggest fish I've ever caught. But my God, it was a dinosaur and can pull. I mean, it's like trying to reel in a winch, y'all. Like it really is like I don't need to do it anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'll gladly, if the tarpon is over 100 pounds, I will gladly hand you the rod and let you have some of that. Gladly. Yeah, that makes sense to me, Mike, where you have seasons where you like if you catch one, you throw it back or whatever. But I mean, these boys are for real. Like they got like crazy seasons. You got the old limb brim, Anthony? There you go. If you get up in the tree top, you know, that's the if you get the thick part of the tree, you know, that's just you know it's hung, but what you really need is the whippy end, you know, get you a good crankbait, reel it into the top so it gives that good pull, you know, so you can crank it in there and get you a nice, you know, moderate break crankbait rod. So it really tricks you, you know, so for a good 20 seconds or 30 seconds that you really feel good about yourself because after the day you've had and you really super think that you've pinned that monster, those are the limbs that you really need to go after. You know, you need to train yourself to handle. That's how you train properly. That limb that just feels like an 8 pounder shaking its head down there. Just that, it makes the rod go like that perfectly. You know what I'm talking about? Frank's. Frank had to go kill another animal to keep himself warm, but he's back. He's probably like living inside an elk or something, or a moose. Do you have moose there, man? I saw a moose when I was in Idaho this year. He was just standing in the backyard, chilling. Well, he was trying to get some. It was a rut. There was another moose over there. She wasn't having it, but it was kind of cool. Binya, is that a kind of moose? A binya? We don't have moose around here. We got whitetails. Hit them with the truck all the time. Anthony. That is awesome. Exactly. We need a complete montage of nothing but limb brim, trophy limb brim. You know, the tree pounders. Yeah. That is a great idea. That is just fantastic, actually. I'm gonna remember that one. Yeah, I can't tell you too. Where I fish in Georgia, where I've fished for years, it's not as bad around here. We don't have the wood structure. Now, the structure in Central Florida is different, man. It's every kind of plant material, and then in Rodman, it's logs, but the limmy stuff's gone. But in Georgia, man, on the pine tree blowdowns or any kind of hardwood blowdown, really, on the fresh ones, or like I said, the limbs still on the top, and you just snag the end of it. Yeah. Fish sticks. Awesome one. Yeah, that's a good one, man. Sticker. Uh, who said sticker will cook? That's a new one on me too, Philip. That's awesome. Yeah, you go limb brim stickerel. We've just shifted from ponds to saltwater. Okay, Frank's enlightening us with Canadian knowledge here. Let's see what's happening. They're running a trial catch and release season on Lake Ontario. So, okay, so that's the part that's again, we're getting off into like Lake Ontario, punching way above my weight. Do they actually think people are keeping enough? I mean, is there like commercial fishing out there? Because I don't think sport fishermen are knocking a dent in that for real, are they? Like, are people keeping that many fish up there? Because I can promise you, in the South, these dudes ain't keeping fish. Dude. Like, not like that. Like, I can't get dudes to keep enough fish out of a 10-acre pond. Yeah, yeah, Anthony, I hear you on that one, man. Now, Southeastern's bringing up a great point. How are we gonna? How are we gonna do the relative weight on the sticker roll? I mean, it's gonna have to do. It's gonna have to be length versus girth. You know, I mean, you're gonna have to have, but it's also gonna have to fool you into thinking that it's a fish, for at least for a portion of the fight. You can't just snag it knowing it's a stick. You've got to have that. You've like maybe even like some camera proof where you say, "Oh, it's a big one," but you're actually reeling the stick in. You know what I mean? Like where you call it and then it's not, it's a stick. Maybe that needs to be part of that rule. But then it's got to trick you. You got to call it, and then it becomes a length versus the girth. So we'll go total length of the stick versus the girth at the diameter of the stick. Give us the sticker roll relative weight. This is important. Is anybody writing this down? I mean, technically, you're right, Philip. I think we do. We're probably going to have to defer to somebody with professional credentials here. Uh, Not the stick pick. I tell you what, how many people are here? Is it 10 of the funniest people on the planet? Is there 9 stand-up comedians? Because this is more fun than watching television. You guys are doing good. Well done, boys. Well done. I'm telling you, Kirk. I'm telling you, somebody should be recording this. Oh, good, I am. Never mind. I'm telling you. two hours and 10 minutes now, and I think we've got an hour of limb brim to the stickerel. Classically funny, boys. Really well done. Really well done. I think I'm going to end it. I mean, what are we going to do? Get better than that? Is it going to get funnier than that? No, it's not getting funnier than that, boys. That's the end of the show. That's it. Blogmouth, it's coming again. Okay, so we made a deal with somebody, with Anthony, I think. I don't know. I made a deal with somebody. We're going to go live again tomorrow. I'm fine with that. I got time on the weekend, so 7:00 tomorrow, we'll do it again, and we'll make fun of everyone with aerators and Pondai, and think up more of our stick roll comedic gold, because, well, if it gets any funnier than that, I don't know. That was a good belly laugh, though, boys. I really needed that one. That was good. Good job, fellas. Good job. See you tomorrow night.